gone alone. Silver strands swirling under the drain. As the horizon slips far from me, it's all washed away. All dreams in decay. Watch it all fade away. Each passing day, it's all washed away. All dreams in decay. Watch it all fade away. As the horizon slips far from me.
Well, hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 39. Sorry I got caught up there. I just heard Curtis mentioning the cat technical difficulties in the chat. Yeah, we started a minute late because there were some cat technical difficulties. But anyways, we're live. If you're watching live, hit like, consider sharing. It helps a ton. And if you're watching back, consider doing the same.
I'll see a cat too as well.
Yeah, definitely. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. Today we'll be talking about a new synth from Cherry Audio, the Photon Smasher microphone. This sounds pretty cool from what Curtis was telling me. And we'll be demoing the new update from Supermassive because we always have to talk about Supermassive. And I've said that twice already, so you'd have to take 2 shots if you're playing that game. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is my Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good, dude. Doing good. It's been a hectic day, hectic week, but
I'm with you.
We tuned in a little bit early today because we're going to be going through Sunwarper's EP, Cracks in the Visage. We're going to go through a playthrough. It is a live EP, so
Performance playthrough. Not that I'm performing it live right now. No way.
No, we're not got that far yet. We haven't quite got the technology to do
We'll
that,
get
but
there.
We can dream. When we get to 500 subscribers, we might be able to do something. We'll have a look. But yeah, no, I'm good. We're all good. We're also here today with Eon Lake. How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I don't know if I'm understimulated or overstimulated, but
Did you have coffee today?
I did, but I was going to have a cheeky second one mid-afternoon, which means the day's going badly.
Oh no.
But I didn't get a chance. But I'm
Huh.
still a bit yampy. Don't know why. I'll apologise in advance anyway.
I think we're okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
we'll be all right. After last week where we were all sick, I think it's all right.
Yeah,
We'll take you as you are. It doesn't matter. We're just happy to have you.
There's a famous song that says, "I like you just the way you are," and we'll go with that way. So,
You
yeah.
yampy git.
So we'll see. So yeah, tune in a little bit early. Hello to everyone in the chat. Welcome. We've got Lars, Haur, we've got Shady Ridge. Always lovely to be.
Hey,
Also,
guys.
it's always nice to have you in. Thank you ever so much. Shady has,
Yeah.
well, Joshua James Whitman has a brand new album coming out on Friday. Can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. Been looking at all the photos and the posts. It's gonna be absolutely
Yeah.
awesome.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, 3rd LP, I believe. Is that right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Shady.
Shortly, yeah.
But if it's anything like the last one, it's gonna be amazing. It's always
If
nice.
it's anything like any of them.
True,
Yeah,
And we were talking in the chat beforehand. Just I want to ask anybody: did anybody grab any Black Friday deals? We talked a little bit. Shady said he didn't. Lars said he didn't. He did say that my daughter said she wanted a gaming PC. I looked at my aging laptop that I do all my multimedia on and thought to myself, "There's no way a 12-year-old is going to have a better computer than me." That just means you both need to upgrade, right?
Yeah. It's the only way.
Yeah.
It is. It does open up your world. I've just upgraded my laptop, and I'm sitting on a lovely ADSN Nitro 5 now, and my life is so much.
Yeah, I love that you can render now in about 30 minutes instead of 9 hours.
Yeah, it's great. So, like, Thursday is usually the day that we render everything out for the week for Audionautic. It used to take me a whole day. It used to take me 9 hours to get everything done. And I rendered out in 26 minutes last week. I was like, get in.
I got a WhatsApp message, a voice message that was like, "Yo, it finished in 30 minutes. I love this computer." I was like, "All right, yeah, that's the power of upgraded technology, I suppose."
A long time coming. I'm very happy. I just want to let everyone know just how happy I am. With my
32
laptop.
gigs of RAM, you said, right?
32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lovely sitting here. It's lovely. So I can't complain. Shady says 8 tracks, which is wonderful. So yeah, nice little LP. We see where that's going.
Yeah.
But let's
Oh, I
get
should
into
say,
it.
I forgot to mention, at the end of today's episode, we'll also be talking about the Spotify Masterclass that I had promised to talk about last week and was far too sick. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but yeah, we'll be talking about all of that. I've got a whole 2-page docket of notes that we'll be going through. So if you have any questions or anything, either before or while we're talking, I'm going to go through maybe like one topic at a time, and then we'll take a break. So if anybody wants to ask anything in the chat, just write it down, or over in our Twitter group for patrons, you can write it there too. We're everywhere.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about 2 subjects at the same time to make it really clear for people?
I don't know if I could talk about 2 subjects at one time.
Give it a try. It's in stereo, no?
I don't know. I mean, if I pre-recorded, maybe.
Oh, maybe. We'll have to see. But yes, this show is brought to us by our patrons. Thank you ever so much for supporting us. We love the fact that you do. It's really appreciated. If you want and if you like and you vibe with what we're doing here, consider becoming a patron yourself. Pledges start as little as $2 a month. You get access to a private chat on Twitter, which is really nice. A growing community on Discord as well, where we do hangouts. We've just started doing a Patreon-only hangout last weekend, where we all kind of just sat around and sort of chatted for a little bit. It's good laugh. And yeah, lots of stuff. Early access to all our content, binary stars, that kind of thing, and extra stuff as well. For example, with binary stars, it's audio only on Mixcloud. But if you're a patron, you get it on YouTube in 1080p, which is lovely. With those brand new renders, which only take really about 10 minutes to render out. So
Yeah, instead of the 9 to 10 hours, that's a very good improvement. That's drastic. What were the specs on your old computer?
Oh, mate. So originally it was from 2015. Originally it was 8 gigs of RAM, which I then increased to 16. It didn't have an SSD. It was pre-SSD world, and I broke it open and installed an SSD, which kind of worked, but also needed a kick every now and then. So yeah, always good fun. It's HP as well, which are a little bit dodgy for kind of high-end stuff. So yeah.
We also have David in the chat. He says, hello, everyone. How's it going, David? What's up? Did you grab any Black Friday deals? Let us know.
We'd like to see. Sunwarper, did you get any Black Friday deals?
No. Well, A, I was way too sick. And then B, I did not want to buy anything. I'm trying not to spend anything at the moment and just really master everything I have. So
I get that. It says the mastering engineer.
There you go, yeah.
There you go. What about you, Ian? Luke?
I don't think I did. I had a look.
That's shocking.
Softube were doing cheap stuff again. And I thought, maybe I'll get the old Mutable Instruments Platts for the software Eurorack. And then I logged in and realized I already had it and thought, dude.
This is a running thing with you where you're like, oh, I realize I already have it, and I'm just, that might mean you need to slow down.
Yeah, instead of shopping, why don't you use what you've got, you massive idiot? So
you do need to check out the new Bliss stuff, though. That is
we got it.
I did buy that.
He bought it, even though we gave him a code, which is
that's me, isn't it?
No, it's good to support if you can.
You got to support it if you like it. You know, I always think that in this world, if you like something, you've got to support it. If you want it to continue to be,
continue to be, just be as in be.
Very existential.
Very, very, very spiritual. I love that. So, talking about existential, should we have a look at Cracks in the Visage, shall we?
Yeah, let's. I like that. I like that.
So Sunwarper doesn't have to introduce his own concept. This is an EP that follows from Radiant Visage, which we released a couple of months ago. And this is the live performance EP. So they're all DAWless, if I'm not much.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all DAWless. They were created DAWless, sampling into the SP404 and using the circuit tracks. The live set that I did of Radiant Visage songs is also included on it, but these songs are completely separate. It was the start. When I started making the album, I wanted to do an all DAWless thing, and these are kind of like the remnants and fleshed out remnants of that original concept.
Cool. Well, there we go. The reminiscent remnants, you might say.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So let's take a look. Do you want to introduce the first track for us?
Yeah, so this one, it's actually the most recent edition. It's called No Better Time, and this was all SP.
All SP.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to switch over, so it'll take a second before it plays. This is still kind of a new thing we're doing, so give us a sec.
In the meantime, didn't know Sunwarper and Eon Lake both have an SP404 Mark II. I don't know if they've made that clear, but they do use it and they do like it. So,
And we would represent.
Well, that was a fantastic little introduction to everything we got there. That popped up on my release radar over the weekend, and I
Ooh,
was
nice.
listening to it. Yeah, I was listening to it while making pancakes for me and Chris, and it was bloody lush. It was
That's the
bloody
way
lush.
to make pancakes with some like lo-fi.
Yeah, it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, this is kind of the first kind of, as you say, this is kind of the first like branch into like your doorless work and stuff like that. Like when I know you got, I remember how excited you were when you picked up the SP404, and just turning up on Monday for our meeting. It's like, oh, and then
Because it
So
took
for-
like 4 months to get here.
It was a long time coming.
yeah, I completely get it. Completely get it. My question becomes, okay, so you're sitting there, and now obviously you've got a proficient kind of schedule with your own YouTube channel, where you do this on a weekly basis. How long did it take you to go from getting it out the box to getting competent enough and confident enough for you to start playing around and start jamming and start filming and doing your stuff?
Well, I started the Dallas stuff with the circuit, I think 4 months before I got the SP. Or no, it must have been longer because it took 3 or 4 months when I ordered the SP, and I had the circuit for a good long while, maybe 4 months before I ordered the SP. But I started doing stuff right out the bat. I didn't want to wait or anything. I think the best way to learn is by doing, and there's no better pressure than just like knowing you're releasing it, you know? So I just went right ahead. You can look on my YouTube channel. I think the first one, it's been almost a year, I think, since I got the circuit. It was a year in October. So you can look at it back in October on my YouTube channel, the first one. That was like my first actual jam on the circuit.
Well, there you go. So
Yeah.
as in, you got out of the box and right off the bat, you're filming yourself doing a jam.
Well, I did one song without any equipment and stuff, and that was not good. So I guess to answer your question properly, one song was the journey. There's one song I'll never put. We'll just keep that one a secret. Just nobody tell anyone about that one, okay?
I think it's important to know these things. I think for any budding performer who wants to get into it, like the idea of just taking it out of the box and just kind of going straight, because we could sit and we could practice for months before actually feeling ready, because you never feel ready.
I should add, though, I watched tutorials on both before I got them. So when I got it, I kind of had an understanding just by living vicariously through all these videos of like, oh, here's what these buttons are going to do. It's not the same, because as soon as it's in front of you, it's like, what? But you kind of, it's not muscle memory, but you kind of have that photo recall of like, oh yeah, I remember them hitting shift and doing this or that, you know. So if anyone's looking at getting into Dallas, I definitely recommend watching a lot of videos on the specific piece you're looking to get, or just any in general.
Sounds good.
I had a question.
Yeah, hit me.
So, as somebody who's about to take a load of songs and translate them into partly sample-based live versions, what was your approach for getting your stems and bits onto your samples? Were you sampling into it, or were you using the app to just take stems straight out of your door?
That's a good question. For all of these, most of the melodic stuff I recorded into it, either from the circuit, from hardware, something like that. Now I'm doing it a little bit differently, but for these it was like that. Or I just even play through the SP and use the SP as like a effects box or something.
Yeah.
But the drums I was moving from the computer on an app, on the SP app.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of doing. Just wondered how it stacked up, you know, resampling versus just drop it out the door onto the.
One thing I did do too, when like a sample was kind of complicated or it was a longer sample, like a full bar or 2 bars, is I would just move it into the computer and bounce that out so I could have the exact times so that the loop wouldn't be off. Because this was before the TR rec mode and stuff like that on the SP. So yeah,
That's easier now, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. Shall we move on to the second song?
Yeah, it took the words completely out of my mouth. So introduce this second one for us.
All right, so this one is the earliest track. This is called Relic, and it was Dallas Jam 6. So I think it came out in November or December of last year on YouTube. And I always really loved the track. It's just the circuit and the mini log. And I went ham on the mini log's delay with the feedback to get all these crazy noises and pitch wobbles and stuff like that. So yeah. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah, let's have
Yeah.
it.
All right.
Well, there we go. That was Relic, the second track in the EP, and it was absolutely fantastic. Seems to have been getting a lot of buzz in the chat. Hydrofighter, totally cool track. Everyone seems to love it. Complex from
Oh,
Dave.
thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
This was
nice.
this was one of the earlier DAWless jams I made with just the circuit sending MIDI to the Minilog and the Erebus, and that was like the first one that I was really stoked on in terms of after I finished it. I was like, oh, that's cool. And it got me way out of that whole... I was writing Future Fate at the time, so it was all ambient, but just that whole different setup got me thinking in these complex drum rhythms and things like that.
So now you come back. So you're making the Future Fate, obviously your ambient side of things, and then you're doing this in the DAWless. Is there still kind of a separation of the two, or are you now fusing your DAW and your DAWless stuff?
I had intended next year to do an all DAWless thing, but my scope for the next project has gone far beyond, as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised, gone far beyond what I would do with the DAWless setup. So I think I'm going to combine the two, make the songs in Logic, and then make DAWless versions to perform live, like stems and things like that. Like maybe, because it's going to be a year thing, so maybe halfway through do a performance of the first 6 or 8, and then at the end of the year do like another 6 or 8, something like that.
Makes sense. Completely. What are you thinking, Ian?
I'm thinking I want to play my Minilog again after listening to that.
Yeah, that feedback is
I
nice.
do love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds really
And I
good.
think, don't quote me, I have to look. I think that was one of the presets it came with. I think it's that like SF synth or something. It's like preset 11 or 12. There's a really cool preset they have that I used on a lot of the DAWless jams. I love making my own presets, but that one just really clicked with that filter. Or with the delay.
There are 2 or 3 factory ones that I do use. I might tweak them slightly each time, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always the way. What's track number 3, Sunwarper?
It's Algorithmic Anxiety. This is with the Erebus.
What a name.
We were talking about ADSN stuff, and I was like, we're talking about social media, and I was like, I'm so sick of it. So yeah, that was a reaction to that. This was SP, Circuit, and Erebus. I recorded sounds from the Erebus into the SP, and then also sequenced the Erebus separately with the Circuit, and did all the drums on the Circuit. You can see the whole process of making the song over on my YouTube. I can put a link later. I forget what the name of that one is, but yeah, it is there.
There we go. Let's cut to it.
All right.
Cool. All right. So that is 3 out of 4, and we'll hit the fourth one as an outro for today's show. Absolutely lovely. Again, very Shady says it puts it perfectly. Definitely a darker tone with these tracks. Dig it, and yeah, absolutely fantastic. Very much the darker side of Sunwarper, which is a nice place to go.
Like I said in the chat when Hydrofighter mentioned that it's darker, I was listening to a lot of the Black Dog at the time, which is a really cool IDM band, I guess you'd say, but they do a lot of ambient and stuff like that, but they have such cool sound design. We've talked about them on Binary Stars before, and I think that's around the time that I made this track, and so, yeah, it was just like, I really love those darker tones, the weirder drums, you know, they kind of change around and stuff, and then I wanted to bring it at the end back with like a 4 on the floor, kind of make it a little more like a dark synthwave track or something.
I get that. So in terms of, so we've seen various aspects and various kind of evolutions of your live set. Kind of a two-parter question, right? So are you done in inverted commas with what you've got, and kind of you've got your toolkit now ready to kind of like master and take out into the world, or are you looking to add anything more to it?
I mean, I'd love to get like a Digitact or a Syntact or something, but as I mentioned, I'm not buying anything at the moment, so no, I'm trying to master just like I even love the setup of just the SP and a Volca, and right now what I've really been vibing on is Koala going into the SP. That is like replacing the circuit at the moment. Actually, the circuit's been collecting dust back there. I still love the circuit, but the Koala into the SP is just awesome.
There you go. And so, if I
what was part 2? Yeah.
Before Ian Lake gets in, if you are, again, for people who are looking to get into doorless jams and live production of electronic music, you have that selection of gear there. If you had to start with one, this is like choosing your Pokemon at the beginning, either your Bulbasaur, your Charizard, or your Squirtle. If you're choosing one, where are you starting off?
You know, as much as I'd love to say the SP or something like that, as much as I don't like the synth engine of the circuit, I think the circuit is an incredible start point and brain of an expanding DAW setup, because you get the 2 MIDI outs, you have the 2 synths built in, which, while I'm not the biggest fan of their sound, they're still there, and then you get those 4, they call them drums, but you could put any sample into it, so you could trigger, it's very, not archaic, but it's a very minimal or basic sample thing, but if you do all the chops and stuff in your computer and just move it in, it's pretty awesome. And then you can expand with MIDI and things like that. Also, I mean, I don't know, would you consider this DAW-less? But Koala is a really cool way to start.
I mean, it's not a DAW.
It's a sampler.
It's a sampler. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
I mean, that's just like a nice $5 start point, you know?
Yeah, that's a good toe dip. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, like, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, have you ever tried, because there was some extra Erebus in that, and thanks for that, but there's never too much of that thing in there. But have you thought about sampling that for making pads and things like that, maybe with a free running oscillator so that the different samples sort of peak?
Yeah, so the pads that I was playing on the SP, those like really warped, dusty pads, those were sampled from the Erebus, and I did 2 passes to get chords out of it, because you can play 2 notes, but I think those were like 4, so I did 1 and 2 and then combined them into its own pad. I was mentioning this when we were playing the song, but I mentioned it to Howard, but in terms of that song's setup, I recorded the bass notes and arpeggio and the pad into the SP from the Erebus, and then I also had another arpeggio being sequenced through the circuit into the Erebus. So there is a lot of Erebus on that track. But yeah, it's something I've been looking more and more into doing.
It's funny you mentioned the circuit as a choice for a place to start, because it does look like, apart from being able to give you sounds that are relatively flexible, a couple of MIDIs and so on, interfacing with other gear, it also looks like you get a fair bit of control, really. It's a good converged device in that sense, where you can control other things quite well with it. Yeah,
and you can there is like CV, you can send also CV like programming or whatever to synths. I haven't really done that because I just like to do it on the synth itself, but you can program that stuff to a degree. There is some limitation there. And then it's got a filter that you can do high pass or low pass, but it's a master filter. And then there's a reverb and a delay. So you don't have the suite of effects like the SP does, but it's a nice start point. You can always send pedals either in or out too. That's one way you could do it if you're putting synths through it or something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that is straight out of a thought. And like we say, we'll be listening to the last track at the end of the show. We're going to get on with a bit of news for now, a little bit of a round robin. We've got a lot to get through, and Sunwarper's masterclass findings towards the end of the show. So we shall be returning to it later. It's a lovely little ambient piece. We'll be in the chat. Just chatting around.
It's a generative one. I use the circuit for generative. That's the other thing I love about the circuit, is doing generative sounds with it, because you can do probability and randomness.
So there we go. So much to look forward to. So yeah, for now we'll move on. We'll have a look at the news. There's quite a bit of in the world of VSTs, a little bit of hardware as per, but we're going to start with Valhalla. We're going to start with Valhalla. We're going to start with Valhalla because I mean, we always like talking about Valhalla, and we're going to have more from Sunwarper. Sunwarper's put together a little kind of sound demo. Tell us about it, Sunwarper.
Yeah, so they put up a new update. We talked about it a little bit last week, but as we all love this plugin, I felt like we should just show off a little bit of what it can do and stuff. It's free. There's no sponsorship or anything like that. It's just an awesome plugin that's free. And it also brought up something that I wanted to discuss with you guys and also the chat. If there's any free plugins you're digging of late that have released or that you found recently, let us know. We'll talk about it after I play the quick sound demo, but if you want to just post it in the chat, let us know. We're always looking at really cool free stuff, and we've talked about it before, but there's always new things, so I'm just curious to hear. But yeah, I think the sound that I made may surprise you because it's not ambient and it's not at 100%.
We'll have a look. Before we cut to it, just to let people know in the chat, I've just put the links to Cracks in the Visage for the Bandcamp on some from Sunwarper out on the chat. See if you can grab it there. Let's have a look.
Thank you for that.
Right now.
Yeah,
that's all good. So yeah, always fun on Audionautic Records. So, yeah. Let's keep going. Let's have a listen to this demo, shall we?
All right, yeah, let's check it out.
Lovely little short and sweet demo there, a little lo-fi bop. Usually, Sunwarper likes to wash it out with 100% and turn anything into a massive set of Valhalla, but that was not the case. That was not the case. A little bit more versatility here. Yeah. What did you do? Tell us about
it. So everything, I just wanted to do presets on everything, like stock. It was the stock electronic piano from Logic, no changes to it. And then the drums were a Logic drum called Found Sounds. I just dropped the pitch of the kick and lowered the kick because it was way overpowered. And then I just used Synth Cloud, the preset from it's a Libra one. So they added two new, I guess, engines. I think it's Scorpio and Libra. And this was one of the presets from Libra called Synth Cloud. And I really liked it on the piano because it adds that lush undertone, but it lets the piano's transients still stick out, at least on 50. Even on 100, it was really interesting. But, of course, when you put it to 100 on anything, it's going to make it much later when it plays. So it's no longer like on the beat, so you have to do things with that. But I just thought it was lush, and I just wanted to show a little bit of some of the new sounds that are on Valhalla.
Yeah. Very nice little showcase there. We're always talking about Valhalla here on the show. If you haven't got it yet, if you're listening back, you should give it a check out. It's a beautiful, free little reverb, and it's just so versatile.
Yeah.
And a big apology to anyone playing the Audionautic drinking game, because
You're wrecked.
Feel free to send us your selfies and we'll throw a little meme out there. So yeah, very much so. Yeah, go check it out. Go have a look. It's beautiful, wonderful, and yeah. So it's always good. I've been playing with the Scorpio stuff. I am a Scorpio,
Nice.
so I've been looking at the Scorpio stuff, and I haven't checked out the Libra yet. So it's good that you checked out the Libra stuff.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's always good.
Teamwork.
Exactly, and we don't even think about it. So, yeah. Yin and yang, brother, yin and yang. So, very nice. So yeah, that brings us to a very good, interesting point. This is obviously a free VST, and we've been talking a lot about VSTs recently. We had the Bliss plugins a couple of weeks ago, but we do love our free VSTs here on Audionautic because we're cheap as anything, and so we want to know.
Hey, we're independent musicians. We have to utilize what's given to us, okay?
Exactly.
Being a true artist is about being creative, right? And being able to use any tool to make something beautiful.
Exactly.
Look at that.
So
Truly
that
poetic. Eon.
It's a great way of basically underlining cheapskate. I love it. So yeah, but we want to know: have you stumbled across a new VST recently, free? Is there anything that you've discovered recently and you think that you're going to take in to 2023? Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be discussing going into the new year and our new goals and stuff. What VSTs have you found and that you've been vibing with and that you're going to be using moving into 2023? We'd love to know. And so we've got a couple of our own. I'm really going to put Eon Lake on the spot here. Eon Lake, what about you? Any VSTs that you found recently?
I'm not in the free bracket, to be honest. If I'm honest.
How dare you?
Yeah, mate, come on.
No, I mean we just threw this on him, so it's okay. I'll forgive you.
New ones, but not free. No.
Well, any on the
free
more
that I
budget-friendly variety?
It depends when you get them, really. I mean, you make fun of me buying things all the time. I don't buy stuff when it's full price.
Yeah. You just buy often. That's all.
So yeah, it depends entirely. I mean, I've always got a list of things that I'm interested in, so that when I do see them cheap, I go, and that is something that I was after. It's not like I'm not like shiny.
Like a magpie.
That's a good idea though. To have a list and then just when you see sales or something.
I used to keep lists, but now I don't really need to anymore. I see it, I go, I was thinking about getting that some time ago. So yeah, I not really. But I would be very interested in everyone's favorite free or low cost plugins.
Yeah,
we'd like to know. Sunwarper, what are you thinking? Where
super
are you?
Massive, man.
So, I mean, we've been using Valhalla for at least a year and a half at this point. This is not exactly a new video.
But there's 2 new engines, so it's new.
What
about you?
I sometimes not use it. Sometimes I think
trying to be more tasteful in choice.
I'll get Soundtoy's little plate out and give it, about a 50-second tail, and filter out all the low end, and
then eventually you just go, no, I need Supermassive.
Well, I mean, I used Supermassive really as an echo box and for echo style effects. It's actually really good as reverb as well, with the density right up, and the reverb settings on it are pretty good for big stuff. But sometimes you need to shake it up and do something maybe slightly different with a different plugin. And I was looking at their website the other day, looking at their vintage plate.
I want to get that,
because I've heard some really good tracks that have used it, and
What about you, Curtis? What are you looking at for free?
I am going back to Sample Science. We featured them a few weeks ago, and since then I haven't. I've obviously, me being me, I've downloaded everything, and then I've been upgrading my hardware, so I haven't had a chance to go look through. So there's a couple there. The Singing Bowl Renaissance is one that's really speaking to me that I'd like to give a try, and I'm going to be using for new stuff coming forward.
Nice.
There's also the Zitar Renaissance, that kind of thing. The Zither Renaissance. I'm going to be yeah, you know me. I'm going more down that kind of those ethnic traditional sounds. I'm gonna utilize that a bit more. I've got the native access as well, complete. So I mean that's not free, but that will go along with it. And on the more synthy side, there's Surge XT, which is not a new one, but I only discovered it a couple of weeks back.
It's new to you. That counts.
It's new to me. Yeah, and it's open source, I believe. I believe it's open source, and it's completely free. So I've got it sitting there in Ableton waiting to go. So I just need an afternoon with a MIDI controller, and I'll be good to go. So I might do. Yeah. But as ever, we'd like to know what you guys in the chat I'll be playing with. Want to know what you'll be going on in that front. So yeah, evidently. Cool. All right. So that is Valhalla. We've got one more piece of software, and you got one more piece of hardware. Sunwarper, what do you want to have a look at first?
Hardware.
Of course, you want to say hardware. Of course. Why did I ask?
Why even ask, right?
This is a pretty. This is cool. This is what I would. You know, Andrew Huang, he does his whole weird gear situation. This is what they'll go on the weird gear. We obviously can't do that because that would be copyright. But if
we
there
do
was
have gold gear, but we haven't covered that in a while.
Yeah, we have not. We have not.
Nobody's copying us there.
Exactly. So we have the Photon Smasher microphone. Is that coming up all right? Can you see you guys?
That's good.
All right. I'm not going to play the video.
Wait, go. Yeah, there you go. Stay there.
I'm not going to play the video because the video itself is not really doing much. But what this is, it's from a company called Clip, and it's apparently an upgrade to a previous one. It turns light into sound. That is awesome. I don't know if you're familiar. The idea of you literally hold it up to a light and it will play sound. You can capture the sound. And then maybe you two can put it inside your SP404.
Oh, look at that. So does the video not show that?
So the way it comes through, let me go.
Let's see. It's working. Yeah. Oh.
It reminds me of the Sound for Space project.
Yeah. That's cool.
Ooh. But yeah. I'll stop it there for now.
Yeah, that's trippy.
You can just imagine the firstly you've got the sampleability with it as well, but you've also just got you imagine sticking that behind an effects chain and sticking that in the sampler, just like you could just get so much done with that. Best thing is that's what I'm saying. The best thing about this, £50.
Wow.
£50, which is about $50, $55,
something like that. Yeah.
It's bloody nothing, and it's.
I think Eon Lake's on Amazon right now buying it.
You got it. Photon Smash.
You got it.
That's the name.
You got it. Yeah, completely and utterly. It's in the UK. So if you're outside the UK, you might have to pay a bit more packaging, but I believe the packaging is quite cheap because it's very small. Might be going back to the UK for Christmas, so I might pick one of them up on my way.
Yeah,
because that is bloody fucking amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This is a concept. I mean, the idea of doing that. I mean, does it sound radically different to other stuff, other ways of making sound? I don't know, but just the concept of.
But it streamlines making those crazy noises.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a revolutionized field recording, right?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see. Like, I mean, I think, like you say, like. What got me is the pulsating sounds, and like the natural LFOs. If you've got that Las Vegas thing that's flashing on and off, that's almost like a natural LFO, which is just. I mean, I then think about taking it to something like a Firefly or something like that, or going to a nest of fireflies, just holding it up and just kind of getting that nature stuff.
Plus, then you don't have to say you're field recording. You can be like, I'm light capturing. It just sounds cooler, you know?
It does. It does sound very good.
I've got a telescope. I wonder if you can mount it to a telescope and listen to stars.
I don't see why not. I mean, just get.
This is the problem. I mean, I know there's an element of this, I think, in the video where it's the sort of thing we could just go around like, I want to listen to everything now.
Yeah, you never stop.
Become
obsessive about. I wonder what that sounds like.
You just go up to random people on the street and just hold it up to their glasses or something. It would be a lot of fun. Really good, really interesting way of doing it. So let's move on to our last piece of news. We are 36 minutes past the hour. Brand new, not brand new, but it came in from last week. We didn't cover it last week. There was a lot, but the new VST from Cherry Audio, which I know Eon Lake is a fan of.
Yeah, definitely.
You heard about this, Eon Lake?
I hadn't actually. Ooh.
This is the GX-80, as it says there, a transformative virtual synthesizer, and it's a what's the phrase? It's like an imagination, or it's an heir to, an ode to. So it's
CS80, right?
Yeah. So you've got the CS80, but CS80 and the Yamaha GX1.
Oh,
So it's a combination of those two.
CS80 on its own is not enough, right?
No, of course not. No. Well, I think the CS80. I think Native Access has a CS80. It's either Native Access or it's Arturia. They have a CS80.
Well, somebody's gonna,
Yeah. So like, I feel like maybe this is them going, "Hey, get it from us instead."
We've got another synth in there.
Exactly. I mean, look at this interface.
Yeah.
Bloody
There's
lush.
a lot going on there. That's a lot of control.
Yeah, and they do. If you follow this, I'll put this in the chat as well. There is a walkthrough by Cherry Audio just to kind of take you through everything because it's quite complicated.
Yeah,
but it is very much an ode to the 1980s and 1970s.
The most technologically advanced quantum leap forward from its contemporaries.
Sadly, they talk over quite a bit, but in a minute,
4 years later,
we do have
voicing architecture and innovative real-time performance control capabilities as the GX1.
Yeah, very nice.
The CS80 was embraced by music professionals, including Paul McCartney. Their rarity and exorbitant cost.
No sound.
CS80 was the Blade Runner one, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're into making your synthwave, or if you're into making your retro music, or if you happen to be on a Calvin Harris trip right now, then go and do that. And maybe we just said the word met Calvin Harris. Maybe we'll get a load of Calvin Harris fans to come and check out our show. You never know. But yeah, very nice indeed. Because we are cool and hip. That's what we do. That's what we do. But yeah, very nice from Cherry Audio. They're kind of like an underrated, not underrated. They don't get much limelight as many, I feel.
I think so. Their Juno version is really good. I use that a lot. Their ARP 2600 clone is really good as well. And I don't think they're that expensive compared to others.
They're not. No, this GX80 is it's an introductory price of $60 or $59, and then it'll after a short while it'll go up to $80, which is bugger all, really, if you think about it in terms of
for what it is.
Plan. Exactly. Yeah, might have to buy that one when we've got a bit of money.
Just remember, the beauty of soft synths like that is you can have 4 or 5 of them on a track, without having to multi-track, especially if you've got a new laptop. Okay,
yeah, very much so. Very much so. I was considering going the other way. If Sunwarper, you're going doorless, I was thinking, because basically I'm cold.
Double down on the door.
I've got the launch pad. I've got a MIDI keyboard here. I've also got another MIDI keyboard behind the camera. But I was thinking about getting another one here and just kind of doing a little kind of thing just for the because I just sit in my dressing gown with the cat and just kind of do it. Anyway, proper beatmaker style.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that is what we've got in terms of products for this week. So we will be going to Sunwarper's marketing in a bit, but firstly we have the round robin. And Hydrofire is up in the studio, up in the lobby.
Is he?
He is.
Bring him in. Don't reject him.
No, I won't. So yeah, Sunwarper, do you want to introduce the concept of the round robin?
Yeah, so the round robin is where one of us, usually Curtis, sometimes Eon Lake, and sometimes even our patrons like Hydrofighter previously, brings a topic to the table and we all discuss it. It's usually sometimes studio-based, production-based, more music existentialistically based. I don't know. I can't think of the word I'm trying to get for it, but you'll understand when we get to it. But yeah, before that, we've got one of our patrons, Hydrofighter. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm good. It's winter time for me now. Snow's on the ground, it's getting chilly, which means music production.
Ooh, that's a good time then.
Not as much outside time or inside time.
How are you enjoying it? Are you being productive?
I think so. But I don't know, last week not so much. We had the holiday here and I basically just stepped away from music for about 3 or 4 days, which it's kind of a long time for me. I mean, just completely unplugged, not
Oh, wow.
listening to much, not playing around with much. So, which kind of gives you some fresh ears when you come back to it.
Does it? I really must try it. I've never done that. Ever.
Don't do it like Shady though. Where I mean, he's always listening to music, man, but sometimes he unplugs from writing and that stuff for, as you know, the whole summer. But
Hey, well, it works for him though, so don't
Yeah.
knock him.
yeah,
And again, just to reiterate, we said at the beginning, we'll say again, Shady Ridge actually does, Josh James Whitman does actually have his LP coming out on Friday, which is going
Yeah.
to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Really, have you listened to it yet, Hydrophone?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have. It's a lot more chill. I think a little bit more smooth than his past ones, but definitely gonna have some Supermassive on there.
Very
Drink.
much so.
There goes another shot.
Very much so. So yes, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, the round robin for this week. I was thinking of sitting down, and Sunwarper actually and I were having a conversation about mastering, because he's currently mastering my album, and we got to thinking about that. One track, I got some clipping. I got some really bad clipping on one of the guitars. So going back into having a look, and yeah, it's all over the place, right? So I was thinking, we've been producers now for X amount of years. We've been doing it for a while. I wanted to just bring up for any producer who might be just starting out for what they're doing, what practices that we started doing, and what either sound design techniques or either EQing or anything like that we started doing that we thought was a good idea, but then down the line we've realized might not be the best practice. It might be causing us more problems, or it might be degrading the quality of the sound of what we're doing for any particular reason. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I had this certain inspiration for this comes from when Sunwarper and I were talking about Future Fade, and when he went back to a few of his projects back in the day. So I was wondering if this week we might start with Sunwarper.
Yeah, sure. So I was going to talk about that one, but I have another one too that I want to bring up. So I'll be quick with both because I don't want to take up too much time. So I talked about this before, but it was actually Radiant Visage for Glass Taurus, which was written in 2016 and recorded in 2016. Maybe even 2015. I don't even know anymore. What's time? But anyways, I, at the time, was trying to go for this ghostly sound to the human elements or something like that. You know, I wanted the human elements to kind of be buried. So I just did massive notch EQs from like, I think it was 800 to 15 or 2000. I mean, when I opened it I think I was working on it in 2021 or even this year, I opened the EQ because I still had the file or all of the Logic file. And there's just this huge, as Eon Lake showed, just this huge triangle going down or a down arrow. And I was like, what? And then I shut it off and boom, it was just like crystal clear, exactly the sound I was wanting. I was like, what was I thinking? But that was just like at the time, I just wanted this certain sound. And I think I remember at the time liking the way that sounded. So I don't know if I'd say it's like, I realized it's not productive. It was what I was going for, but listening back now, I'm like, no, I need those guitars to be a little more pronounced and stand out more. But that does tie into something else. And this is the other one. And this is more what I would say. At the time when I was working on that, I mean, I was meticulously going through every single drum, every single this, doing all these EQs, trying to make it perfect and all that. And
You surprised me, sir.
no, nowadays, I think you can have perfect or you can have done.
Okay.
That's like, and that's what these DAWless jams are. Like one pass, you know, I'm not changing the mix. You can't change the mix. It's a stereo track. And I love it so much better. And I mean, you guys can tell me whether my productions have gotten worse for it. But I mean, in my opinion, I can get more done. I like the sounds of it. And it's just working that creative muscle more frequently. So I think it's a win-win. I mean, there are still times I take my time and work on things, but it's like I still know to just call something done rather than be like, I need to do 0.5 lower. No, 0.5 higher. No, keep, changing and changing.
Dead.
Yeah.
In the moment. Yeah. I sidetracked you. Carry on with the second dialogue.
No, that is it. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got confused. Okay,
Yeah.
I got confused. Well, okay, there we go. So that works in that, right? Eon Lake or Hydrofire? Any volunteers?
I'm gonna let our guest go first. Naturally,
Oh, well, I'm going to probably piggyback off of some of the things that Sunwarper said. I think as a beginner, don't overthink production too
Yeah.
much. I mean, I think the fun part of it is really writing the song. I think some of the things where I've gone down the road the wrong way is maybe trying to get my levels too hot on my mix before I send it out for mastering. And a lot of that is probably over compressing certain tracks over other tracks. That's definitely something where I've done it, and I've had these conversations with Sunwarper too, not to put too much compression on your master channel of your
Or don't
song,
put any.
or don't put any, because you want to leave that room for your master. And if you do too much on your mix, you can't pull it back out. Well, not unless you go back to your mix and pull it back out. So I've noticed a lot lately. What I've been doing is I haven't been hitting the levels hot. And I know a lot of times when you're recording things, you want to have those hot levels going in so you don't have as much noise floor if you have to boost the gain.
Yeah.
I sometimes like the noise floor, but
Yeah.
for what I'm doing with the MIDI instruments that I'm using, I'm not concerned about not having hot levels on my mix. I'd rather have consistent mix for all of the tracks in there than have every track be super hot in it. I think that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, I would definitely say to not put, I mean, it's personal preference, but I wouldn't put any effects on the master chain, because you can always have either the mastering engineer who's doing it, or when you're mastering, you can put stuff on it, because like you're saying, you can't go back sometimes. And even if you do go back, if you're doing it yourself, it's like just another step to do. And it's much better when you have the 2-track, you can see the peaks and things like that. You can control it all with the master.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation in the Twitter chat, though, too, is where some people want to have a little bit on there to get a feel.
I mean, you
for
can always
what
mute
they
it.
think it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
always turn it
That's
off.
what I do. Like
Okay.
when I'm in my near end mixing.
A lot.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
And
Like,
turn it off at the end. So
Yeah.
you got an idea of what it will sound like, with some compression on it, but when you just take it off, and because really you want to be able to redo your compression without redoing your mix necessarily.
Yeah.
You want to have to remix it just because you sat on it too much with a compressor, and you just want to back it off a little bit. If it's just an audio file in a DAW, with a setting that you can just go back to and tweak and bounce out again, it's so much easier, right?
Yeah. The other thing I'd say, though, too, is utilize auxiliary effects,
definitely.
because instead of stacking so much on each individual track, you can especially for like reverbs and delays, I think, where you can blend your mix a lot easier than soaking your PCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of that.
Well, why don't we go to you then, Ian? Like, what are your production
I
changes?
suppose my
studio
response to
practices?
that comes down to a lot of things that have already been said, but also our whole sort of understand the rules so that you can break the rules. So initially, I tackled everything like in the traditional engineering sense. If you want something to sound good, take something that sounds good and record it properly. You're done, right? Instead of trying to take something that sounds shit and then try and make it sound good afterwards. And so that's how I used to do things. I used to be very careful about levels, get a good hot level in, but not have too hot a level actually, in the mix or anything. I've tended to move away from that a lot in recent years with sound design and all the mad processing you can do in the box now with chaining things together. So now, sound design is maybe a part of creating sounds, and it is about taking a sound and then completely altering it in order to get something that you want to use. But to be fair, those principles are still being applied. So I'll still try and either keep it clean or as Hydrofighter said, deliberately make it dirty and use that noise floor and enhance it a bit based on whichever I'm trying to make. So it's about sort of adapting it a bit. I have, over the last few years, I've gradually gotten a little bit dirtier with sound. I've tried to move away from anything that sounded too squeaky clean or pristine, try and make things sound a bit more powdery, a little bit fuzzier sometimes. And it's easy to overdo that. You really do have to be careful, especially if you are, as I've recently been described, a maximalist producer, having with a lot going on, you do have to be careful. You've got to be careful if you're compressing a mix as well. When you've got, saturation and distortion on parts, you can really begin to white out the whole thing. But also on that point, something else I noticed also, I used to gain stage a lot, and I've stopped doing it recently just because I haven't had my focus on it. But mixing recently, I've noticed that gain staging, you really should do it. So when you've got your sound coming back through for a mix, you need to make sure you're not running too hot on the channel, going through, particularly through VSTs, really hot levels. They don't have a good headroom. They're often going to do something horrible to the sound and degrade it and so on. Just bringing that down and the fader higher if you want it louder, but not actually running your signal too hot through effects, VSTs and stuff like that, unless you're deliberately trying to make a racket, in which case throw those rules away. But gain staging I've found to be quite important recently, particularly if your sound isn't a clean one. You can lose the separation a bit when you're running things too hot through your kit.
And what about you, Curtis?
It's just a couple of an amalgamation of some of them. I mean, as a first one for me, one of the biggest ones that I had was overcompression, which I think we touched upon with Hydrofire. I used to compress my channel, then my bus. I know I don't put stuff on the master, but sometimes, especially when I was using FL, there were multiple buses or multiple sends to multiple stuff, and they would all be compressed. So overcompression is a massive one for me. It's worthy taking the time out to just sit down and learn a compressor and learn what a compressor does. I didn't do that. I just kind of went, compressor, I'll just turn the knob and see what happens, And I suppose it's learning by trial and error in a way, but understanding where a compressor comes from and understanding how it affects the dynamics and how it affects the overall tonality of everything, that would be an interesting way to go. Looking back at some of my stuff from Feeler Math, the mixes are a bit dirty and they're kind of a bit over compressed with the guitars and stuff like that. So it's always an interesting way to go. But that would be where I would sit with that one. It's important to, in a similar vein, know where your gear is coming from. I think when we all start, I can't speak for you guys, but when I started at the beginning, I didn't look at any tutorials or anything. I didn't look at anything. I just kind of went, this is FL Studio. Okay, let's see what this does and see what that does. And I didn't really start looking at tutorials until I was about a year and a half in, really. And it's important, like you say, to understand the rules before you can break them. I did it the other way around. And I still a testimony to, I still don't use reference tracks, for example. But it's an interesting way of going. We're looking at where you're going from, understanding what the boxes do before you can move them around, understanding the idea of where things sit in a signal chain for best sound, so to speak. Then you can flip them in their own way. But that's mine essentially.
Yeah, I think there's something that Ian said too about, knowing the rules. That doesn't necessarily just apply to just production. It's a musical thing too. You could look at, if you understand theory, and as we all become better musicians, we understand theory a little bit more. But once you understand theory a little bit more, you can understand how to break those rules, how to step outside, how to use borrowed chords and stuff like that. I think for beginners, one really good piece of advice that I would say is just keep it simple. You don't have to be fast to be good, is what a teacher told me one time. And I had a lot of people compliment me on my bass playing back in the day because I tried to be fast, but I couldn't play like Jaco Pastorius. And people said, I love playing with you because you don't play so much. Just keep it simple. Start small. I understand we have this whole huge rabbit hole of free plugins and all of that stuff out there, but don't try to take on too much in one shot.
Don't run before you can walk. It's always nice, but limitations are a good thing.
Yeah.
But yes, we'd like to know in the chat, those watching back or either live, what have you found as you've progressed through your music journey? What little things have you found that perhaps were not as best practice, and something that we can impart knowledge for those who are just starting out, should we say? But thank you very much for indulging me, gentlemen. Very nice. We shall wrap up towards the end of the show by looking at the highly anticipated Spotify notes from Sunwarper, where he went to a masterclass 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, went to. I sat on my laptop and watched it.
Yeah,
But-
in these days, it's the same thing.
yeah, I guess so. In
Yeah.
2022, that counts, right? So, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I'm going to break these down. I think it's in 5 topics. So, at the end of each topic, so that I'm not just 4. Thanks for the correction. So that I'm not just going on and on, we'll pause. And if there's any questions while I'm talking in the chat, just post them and we'll get to them. If you guys have questions, the 3 of you, just let me know as we go. So, this was actually, as I mentioned last week, it was actually pretty interesting. They gave some very cool topics, and I know there was a replay. I didn't get to check if it's still available. I will look, and if it is, I'll post it in the comments after the video ends. But so they started with this website called found.buyspotify.com, and Curtis, you should have it to pull it up really quick just to show it. We don't need to hover on it very long, but from there they said that the key ways discovery happens on Spotify is streams from editorial, personalized streams, which they count as playlists, mixes, radio, and algorithmic recommendations, which they have those algorithmic playlists like Beast Mode Workout or something. Those count as personalized streams. They say that those streams count for 1/3 of artist discovery on Spotify. And then the final one they say is streams from active sources, which would be search, catalog, which is tracks that are over 18 months old. That's their term for like older tracks, catalog, and library. So that's just like all the songs. They say the majority of streams come from active sources. 3/4 actually come from catalog, which is something we had talked about recently from a study they had done, where that's a lot of listens. 3/4 of active sources are catalog, so old songs. So it's nice to see that older songs are getting plays, but like we had mentioned, and Eon, like you might be prepping to mention this, that also takes into account those massive like Kate Bush songs, which they talked about in this. So, I mean, you know, I don't know how they're looking at the metrics. Is it individual artists or just catalog at all? So that's the first thing. Next, we'll get into submitting to editorials, what they talked about that. But do you guys have any questions regarding that?
Well, not questions per se. Interesting though. Interesting, especially about the catalog stuff. Maybe it is because of sync campaigns, really successful sync campaigns, like you say.
Yeah.
Makes sense in that, right? Is there anything you wanted to particularly?
No, I
hone
just
in
wanted
on
to
this
quickly show the website. We can put a link to it, but this is where a lot of the stuff they're talking about you can actually see in terms of metrics and studies and things like that. If you're interested, it's a good place to visit. So shall I move on, gentlemen?
Move on to something. It's always nice to know thy enemy, as they say.
Yeah, Sun Tzu, right? So submitting to editorial. So they say, and we've talked about this ad nauseum probably, that their submission tool, it's best to submit 7 days or earlier on the Spotify for Artists, and that's to guarantee getting into personalized playlists, as they call it, like Release Radar. So if you do submit 7 days or earlier, you're guaranteed to be on your followers' Release Radar and possibly other playlists and things like that. They spent a lot of time talking about actually writing the submission. And so they said that context and details are incredibly important. And they actually had editors talk about what they look for, what they do when they pick a song and things like that. So we'll get into all of that. But they say that genre, location, language, instruments, and then whether it's a cover or a remix, they all look at that for where they're going to put it and things like that. They also said the biggest part is the description. I thought it was funny. They mentioned that a lot of people leave the description blank. And they're like, then we have nothing to go off of in terms of like the song. But they said the best things to do when you write the description, put a story, which we have talked about before, why it's good to figure out a story for a song. Tag your social media. They say that it adds more interest for them and they want to see your the song's context at a greater whole than just Spotify. They also say if you know your audience, put it in the submission. And then they said, put any playlist that you have in mind in there, because they may, if somebody gets it for, let's say you put lo-fi and ambient or something, if one of them gets it, they may send it to someone else who like fits the genres better. They mentioned if you're a small artist, they like to know the scene and the background that you're in. And when they said social media, one of the big things they said is they want to see what else is happening with your music outside of Spotify. Are you playing live? Do you have your live shows set up on Spotify? Do you have merch? Things like that. So it sounds like deciphering what they're saying is you want to present a story and you want to present activity and what you're doing, and like if you have really cool artwork or you're doing, let's say, AI artwork where you're moving through a picture or something like that, they'd want to see that on the social media to get the story of the song. And then they talk. This is what I thought was really interesting. Actually, I'll pause because that's the end of that segment before I move on to the next one. But I teased it. So, do you guys have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like they need as much detail as possible so
Exactly.
they don't have to read between the lines. Did they mention anything about tempo or BPM?
They didn't mention tempo, but that could fit into knowing your audience. That could fit into the playlists you have in mind. You could be like, hey, I know you have this retrowave playlist that's generally 125 with 4 to the floor. I have that, and I have these, shifting arpeggios or this and that, things like that. It may... Now, again, I'm just relaying what they said. There may be more or less to the things, but this is what they're telling us, and I mean, we should take that as at least on face value.
There were a lot of suggestions about potential things you might include there, but you're limited in how much you can say as well, aren't you?
Very true. Yeah, and when I took that information to submit No Better Time, I had to I was like, wow, there's no space for any of this, so I had to put, this is part of a Dawless series, blah blah blah. Here's the YouTube and this and that. It didn't get placed or anything, at least yet, but I did take that into account.
What's the character limit?
Oh, I don't know offhand. I want to say it's like 500 to 1,000. I want to say.
Leave out those adjectives.
Exactly. You're going to have to be careful about how you write it, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's short to sweet. A lot of it as well. Keyword search, wasn't it? Like tracking by AI, which would then either for editorials probably gone filtered through AI, taken to a human who has like the final stamp on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, short, sweet syntax. English teacher Curtis coming through here. Short, sweet syntax with remove your adjectives, keep the major phrasing there, and you're sorted.
Yeah.
Social inclusion was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, and I'm sorry, say again, Lake?
The fact they want to see stuff on other platforms is not necessarily instinctive, is it?
I think they want to see you having an impact elsewhere because you're going to draw people to Spotify. Reading between the lines, that's what I think they're trying to say, is you have an active base or community or interactivity or something like that. Or they also kept talking about like cultural influence and your impact on things and stuff like that. So they want to see this 360,
So if you can say it's going down well on your 4 million YouTube subscribers, they'll probably be interested, right?
Yeah.
A bit more so shareability, isn't it?
But with that being said, there's smaller playlists, and they talk about this whole playlist pyramid that we'll get into where they test it out. And that's actually what we'll be getting into next. So shall we move on?
That's a good segue as ever. So.
All right. So the next topic, I named it as what to expect when you're on or placed on editorial playlists. And this is coming from the editors. So this I thought was really interesting because, you always think like, oh, you made it if you get on the playlist, right? But there's a whole other angle and metric system they use once something's placed on a playlist that they're looking at. They say they look at listener reactions in playlists, organic listens, wider social media culture, which is what we were talking about, and also performances in cities. Because if you show like a lot of the stuff they're talking about is utilizing, and we'll talk about it later, everything Spotify offers. So if you have, let's say you're touring and you have tour dates, they'll see like, oh, they're playing at this city. Do they have listeners in that city? And they might place it in a like regional playlist. There's that whole regional and global playlist thing. But they also say understanding audience varies by genre. So if they're curating a chill playlist, they're not going to look at saves per track, but they're going to look at if a song on this editorial playlist has a low skip rate. So they can actually see how many songs are saved on a playlist, if someone's skipping the song, and if the song has a low skip rate, they may push it into bigger and bigger playlists, which is what we'll talk about in a second. They said another example is pop music. They know people aren't listening through songs. They're trying to find a specific sound they like. So skip rate doesn't matter. The save rate matters. So it really varies based on the genre. So it's things to consider if you're making a certain type of music. Like consider the setting of that music and where it sits, how people listen to it.
Is there any way to find out what metrics they're using for each genre?
Nope.
So that's trial and error.
It's trial and error. I mean, first you have to get on an editorial playlist. So that's the first big hurdle. And I'm not underselling that. That's a hurdle. I mean, none of us, to my knowledge, none of us have been placed on a playlist. I'm just reiterating what they said in this masterclass. They did have other recommendations. They said push catalog, which I think they mean in terms of getting saves and plays and things like that on external playlists, like artist curated playlists and, you know, curators outside of editorial. So they mentioned the whole Kate Bush thing with that sync placement working. Then they started putting it in their playlist because it had this cultural impact. They talked about artist curated playlists. They said a great thing to do is make your own playlists, put similar artists, and then help grow a community. Which, just to tie in, we do have our Audionautic radio playlist, which that is something we're doing. So if you want to join it, submit to either Audionautic or myself. The playlist is in the description. They also talked about, and I mentioned this earlier, the editorial playlist pyramid, which they call an ecosystem of playlists that work together.
Very hippie, man.
Yeah, very corporate-y. But it was really interesting. They actually showed this pyramid that they designed, you know, with the graphics, and you have a massive playlist at the top, like, you know, world top 50 or something like that. And then they show this diagram of all these diverging smaller playlists that get smaller and smaller in terms of follows until it goes to like the base. Like, let's say maybe you have, I don't know, I'm just thinking offhand, but there's a retrowave playlist. So maybe there's a smaller one even. And then above the retrowave, there would be, let's say, synthwave. And then above that is like electronic top 50 or something. So there's this funnel that it goes. And if they put a track on a small one and it's getting those metrics they like, they may move it up. The one guy used this example of a hip hop artist. He put it in this smaller playlist. It did the best numbers he had ever seen. So he moved it to a bigger one and it kept doing well. And he moved it and it got all the way to like the top playlist, and it sat there for weeks or something. So
I'm going hip hop.
Yeah.
That's the way forward.
But still, it's just this idea of how it just cascades and keeps going up and up because it's hitting those metrics that they care about. So if you're trying to get on editorials and stuff like that, it's good to know this info because this is what they're looking for and their method of why they would put something on an editorial and why it may get higher and lower, things like that.
So it's important to have a presence, and it's important to, dare I say, release not strategically, but with things in mind, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other comments? That's the end of that topic. We have one left, which is a pretty quick one.
I guess, did you get any experience out of the song that you did with the vocals on it versus any of your other songs?
It got on some artist curator playlists, but honestly, I think my two highest performing tracks are Dawning, which is a lo-fi track, and Arctic Horizons in terms of playlists. But this year I actually didn't get on many playlists, and I got much higher streams because I've been trying to push like organic listeners, so to speak, which I think is actually the way to go.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like any comments, concerns, or questions?
No, I just said that last comment of yours is valuable for me because I think a lot of people, you know, Spotify particularly. Firstly, this is all very useful because some of it is counterintuitive. I think a lot of people are also just looking for this quick solution that's going to make everything happen for them, which is, you know, naive at best. And like you say, I mean, you know, farming carefully over a long period of time, cultivating organic listens is probably long-term a better strategy than, you know, just trying to be suddenly very popular.
Yeah. Because,
you know, you need to be able to sustain whatever growth you manage to achieve on some of these platforms.
Yeah.
And that's one of the takeaways for me as well about hearing about what they want in your submissions and so on. It's like, you know, they want to understand how well the metrics that they introduce and the tools that they have are performing. So if you've got data on that, that's going to be a good thing. So to a certain extent, you're giving them what they want, some visibility into the platform they've created and how well it's working and in what ways it's working. So any stats and things that, you know, the bells and whistles they have on the platform that you can comment on or include data on, they're going to like that, aren't they? Because it's giving them the information they need to develop.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah, and I should also mention that Spotify Wrapped just released, like Spotify Wrapped for artists. And it is interesting that I've said it before, and the reason I really like Spotify Wrapped is just to see your growth over time. Not necessarily to get bogged down in the numbers or to brag about it, nothing like that. But one of the things they show in the Wrap this year is like this many people listen to you in their top 10 artists. This many people listen to you in their top 5, and this many in your top. You are their top artist, and I was like taken away by seeing that, because it's just like that. It's not the number that matters, but knowing that people are listening to you and it's having like a profound effect. Like with me, with Boards of Canada, where I listen to them every day or something. You know, it's like it's just like that's crazy. It's just crazy. So it's nice to see that metric and see how it progresses, moves, and things like that. The final section is tips, and I mean, they kind of already had gone over this and all the topics, but they broke it down into condensed versions. The biggest thing I found, they're really talking about using everything Spotify offers you. So, well, of course, but they're saying if you tour, do that. They're trying to get you to link your merch, which I think you can only use Shopify. I'm not doing that. But if that's something that matters, like have that. They're claiming that, you know, having all those things, they look at it and it gives them the context of where to place a track. But they said utilize the tools Spotify provide. Encourage people to follow you in your bio. I thought that was interesting. They flat out said, give them a reason and state follow in your bio. It must apparently work. They also said give a reason to hit follow. So put the touring, put the merch, put things you can use that. I'm blanking on the word, but the recommendation at the top of your artist page. You can recommend a song. Artist pick, that's it. Thank you. You can recommend a song. You could recommend playlists that you make or that you're placed on, anything like that. I think it's just showing activity and, so to speak, influence on Spotify is something they look for. And the final thing they said, when you're submitting to playlists, mood is important. I think that's one of the sections you can choose, like chill, energetic, things like that. So, yeah.
Angry.
Yeah.
Is angry on there? I know there's contemplative, energetic, sad, I think.
It's not the death metal guys.
Yeah, they should have something for like post-doomer metal or something.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank you very much for that. I mean, that's quite a lot coming through there.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised by how much they talked about. So,
it'd be nice to see. So if you guys watching, either back or watching now, have had any success with editorials, feel free to share. Let us know what you're doing in the comments below. Sharing is caring, and together we grow. It's nice to know where we go. Hey, that's a lot of rhyming. I like it.
Yeah, look at that. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Hip-hop.
Spitting there, mate.
You could get placed on that hip-hop playlist and maybe go up the ranks and get on the top 50.
Yeah,
You're making it, man.
There we go. There we go. We can say goodbye to weird electronica, and out comes a conscious hip hop.
Time to sell out.
Very much so. But yeah, thank you very much. We will. What's our outro this week? We're going to outro your final track.
Yeah, we're going to play the last track from Cracks in the Visage. It's a generative track. So it was originally a 2-minute song on the album Radiant Visage, and then I used the circuit before and after playing the stems and during playing the stems on the SP as separate stems per track. And so it created this very strange, like 8 or 9 minute just ambient journey of generative soundscapes.
It'd be nice to see. So we're going to cut to that. But before we go, we'd like to say thank you very much for tuning into this extended episode. It's been a laugh. It's always good fun. Any final words, gentlemen?
No, I want to hear this track.
I have one thing to say, but Hydro Fighter, if you have any final words, please.
Have at it.
All right. I just wanted to say we are also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify with edited versions of this. There's a lovely render from Curtis, and then I edit all the pieces to flow a little. And then we also have clips here on YouTube if you're short on time or if there's a specific topic you want to see. We have those. We post them Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But yeah, if you want to check it out on Apple or Spotify and maybe leave a rating to help us hit the algorithm, we would really appreciate that. The links are in the description.
Very much so. So without much further ado, cut to it, Sunwarper. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for watching.